Finances are a part of everyday life. Oftentimes, people refer to the internet to get their answers. Sometimes, looking for the internet for answers doesn't always mean the best answer for you. And we're going to talk about that today.
So, Gino, should I go with the investment plan my company offers? And the internet says, yes, at least up to the match. Why it makes sense is because your employer matches you up to 3 to 5% of your salary, provides an immediate return on your money. The account also offers significant advantages by investing and lowering your taxable income.
I agree, Julia, with the internet in this case. And so a lot of employers, what they do is they offer a match. Sometimes you'll hear it's 50% on the dollar, up to 6%. So yes, it makes a lot of sense to at least contribute up to the match, because if not, you're missing out on free contributions added to a retirement plan. I will say it goes a little more in depth than that. So just signing up and getting a match is better than not doing it. But what you really have to keep an eye on is what you're invested in.
Right.
Because if you're not keeping an eye on those things, there's definitely missed opportunity as you're accumulating money for retirement. And also it kind of comes into a tax conversation too. Yes, you should sign up at least to get to the match, but also once you sign up, how are we invested? How is it affecting our taxes? Those things are critical, when building a financial plan for a household.
Absolutely.
How much of my paycheck should go into savings? Here's the internet's answer. So most financial experts recommend saving at least 20% of your take-home pay, a benchmark popularized widely by the 50-30-20 budget. Formula splits your after-tax income into these three buckets. 50% go to needs, 30% for wants, 20% into savings and debt repayment. However, your exact savings rate should reflect your specific income, goals, cost of living. The best approach depends on your financial stage.
Yeah. I mean, again, I would agree with the internet for the most part, but that 50-30-20 rule is really just a starting point. Identifying the goals is something a financial advisor can help you with. But when it comes to really complicated equations like retirement, just setting that end goal and saving an arbitrary 20% doesn't necessarily exactly get to where you need to be. You need to figure out what kind of income you're looking for, factor in volatility. All these things can complicate that equation that isn't necessarily just solved by saving a fixed percentage. Adjust that over time, factor in for taxes. So all of these things are a great starting place. It's going to take a little bit more footwork to make sure that those savings numbers actually translate into goal achievement for you.
Yeah, it's tailored to the individual.
Right.
Yeah, for some folks, they save way more and that's comfortable and they can afford it. But I guess, like you're saying, it's the 20% may not be enough, right? If there's debt involved, if they have big goals. So it's a good start. You should save something, right? If it's not 20%, something,
right,
as much as you can afford.
What habits should I start to build future wealth? And the internet will tell you building wealth requires consistent long-term actions. The most critical habits to start today include paying yourself first through automated transfers, living strictly below your means, regularly investing in diversified assets, and steadily increasing your financial literacy to maximize your earning and savings potential.
I mean, I think, again, the internet is spot on in this case. When it comes to folks who have wealth, have savings, what they've done, as simple as it sounds, is they live below their means. And they don't do anything that could potentially hurt themselves, like from a penalty or taking out too much or taking on too much debt, right? They're the type of folks that are conscious about how much overall debt they have and how much are they saving and making sure that they don't sacrifice one thing for another.
Absolutely.
So I agree, again, maybe not everything on the internet, but I do agree with the internet in this instance. Regularly saving, there's time in the market matters more than timing the market. So if you're conscious about saving, you put in your 20% and you do it for long extended periods of time. Now, how much you have could be dependent upon taxes and investments. And that's why meeting with a financial planner can help iron out a lot of those things. But yeah, overall, you should always be saving. Not just for a rainy day, but for some of the goals in the future.
Absolutely. So how much life insurance do I need? And the internet tells me that a standard rule of thumb is to buy 10 to 15 times your annual salary. However, the exact amount of life insurance you need depends on your specific financial obligations, of course, the number of dependents relying on your income, and your existing assets.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and one I think the internet maybe has right, because they're saying it depends on your financial obligations. And that's typically what we'll discuss with clients. So when there is a need for life insurance, we'll look at, is this needs-based? Like, what are we looking to solve? life insurance is for your loved ones. It's not for you. So God forbid something happens to you. How would you like to take care of your loved ones, right? Your spouse and your kids. So there's two different ways that we kind of look at it. One could be income-based, where if the breadwinner of the household, oh, God forbid something happens, like that income is going to be replaced or, is going to be lost for the household. So do we have enough insurance to not only cover some of our needs, cover the mortgage, but also cover, God forbid, we lost, the breadwinner's income in the household? So that's one way to kind of look at it. And we'll use, based on expenses, based on income, based on age, we'll kind of show clients like, here's how much roughly you would need to replace, God forbid something happened to your loved one, to replace their income. Or we can make this kind of what the internet is saying is more needs-based. So based on financial obligations, is there a mortgage you'd like to see paid off? Is there college that you'd like to put your kids through school, if they're younger today? So we'll kind of show both options to clients and say, here's kind of what this means to you, and here's what this could solve. God forbid something happens to you. Which one do you like the most?
Right. And it's something you should check in on all the time too. Your insurable needs aren't always going to be consistent.
Exactly.
When you're young, you don't need it as much. And then you meet with your financial advisor regularly to assess how your insurance needs change. And we can, help people adjust that plan as well.
Exactly. And you could make it so you're not overpaying insurance or you're not sacrificing insurance for an investments. There's ways to do both. And so absolutely. I mean, it's a big topic. And especially as your kids get older, the needs change.
Right.
So if you're revisiting that, they're most likely taking advantage of all the opportunity and making more money, hopefully.
Absolutely.
How much money do I need to retire? Here is the internet's answer. To estimate how much money you need to retire, a common rule of thumb is to aim for 25 times your desired annual expenses. Most experts suggest you will need about 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income to maintain your current lifestyle.
Yeah. I think what the internet's getting at there is what we commonly refer to as the 4% rule, right? Where if you take 4% of your assets over time, you should be able to sustain your portfolio and last you to and through. But what we find with that, it's just a rule of thumb, if you will, is that it doesn't take into effect a lot of things that can hinder or hurt your security in retirement. Market volatility is still at play if you're simply leveraging the 4% rule when it comes to retirement. A down year in the market or an extended period of down years in the market can certainly, even if you're pulling 4%, that means you're living off less. Or if you're not living off less, you're hurting the longevity of your portfolio. It doesn't take into account, how to plan for taxes inside of retirement. That can adjust your, how much income you'd be receiving at that point. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just pulling a simple figure that we can help you solve for, of course, by looking at those other factors that go into that equation, other than just your distribution rate.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think what they said about most experts suggest needing about 70, 80%. I find that to be true, to be the case, if not probably more.
Right.
What would you say your experience is? How much do people spend roughly about 70, 80%?
Yeah. And sometimes, honestly, spend a little bit more, right? You get excited, you get out of work, you start traveling, you start spending on your grandkids and everything like that. So I would argue that might be even a little bit low to maintain their current lifestyle. Yes,
I agree. 4% rule is kind of a rule of thumb in the industry, if you will. I would say the number is probably closer to 90%,
right?
Where most folks, at least my experience in retirement, are spending like about 90%, close to about what they're spending pre-retirement.
Right.
Why? Because every day is Saturday. So
exactly.
What do you do on Saturdays is go out
and spend a bunch of money.
Spend a bunch of money.
And we talked about the fun stuff too, but of course, long-term healthcare comes up and kicks you from behind. And that's triple the cost of what you're paying for healthcare in all of your, healthy years, of course. So
inflation creeps up.
20 years over time, absolutely. So, as you can see, the internet can serve as a solid launching point for considering what your financial future may look like, but generalized advice doesn't consider the intricacies and surprises of everyday life and finance that the average person has. So Florida Financial Advisors is here to give you the expertise you need when constructing your vision of the future and help you lay the financial plans to make it possible. The internet is a great launching pad for a lot of the conversations that we're having today, but it's not always going to be entirely accurate, and really it's not going to be comprehensive. So here at Florida Financial Advisors, we're here to make sure that we're checking all of our boxes and getting into the more intricate parts of building generational wealth. So schedule a consultation with us using the link below to really see how we can lay the financial plans to make this stuff possible.
This content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. All investments involve risk, including loss of principal. Past performance is not indicative of future results.